Some business owners chase revenue. Smart business owners chase net profit. Before you spend another dollar on marketing, let me explain why this mindset shift could save you thousands of dollars. If you're wanting to make $20,000 a month, learning how to run your business can put you on the right path. In one of our previous videos, we talked about the possibility of making $20,000 a month. We have gone through and broken down different aspects of your business, but today we're going to talk about net profit. As a reminder, these are the 4 key areas that we are tracking on a P&L. Obviously, there's a lot of different things you can track, but these are the 4 main things that I suggest that you start with. Your cost of goods sold. That's your labor, your material, anything needed to complete the job. We've already done a video on that. You should check that out. Marketing. That's obviously how you're generating your leads. We've also done a video on that. You should check out that one as well. Overhead. That's the hard expenses that are hard to get away from. Your set expenses, your office, your overhead. That is the things that you can't do anything about in a lot of cases. Now, sometimes they get inflated, but we did a whole video on how to manage your overhead. But today we are going to talk about net profit. Your net profit is the number at the very bottom of your P&L, your profit and loss statement. So this is the amount of money your company has made after all other expenses. Depending on what type of business you have, your net profit percentage could fluctuate. I would say 15 to 20% is going to be a pretty good net profit. Again, the net profit is the number at the bottom of your P&L. Depending on what type of business that you have, your net profit is going to fluctuate. Now, for a home service business, 15 to 20% is a pretty good net profit. Now, as you get bigger, that number may shrink a little bit. You have really good systems in place. It should maintain, but you might notice it fluctuates a little bit. The net profit is an indicator of how well you're managing your other expenses. Typically in your business, you're going to be looking to reduce expenses in one of the other 3 main areas that we talked about: marketing, cost of goods sold, or overhead. Those are the 3 big buckets that you can look to reduce costs in. I like to think of net profit being a report card on how well I am running the business. How well am I managing the expenses in those other 3 areas? Sometimes the net profit is a lagging indicator of the performance of the business. For example, my business is very seasonal, so the first quarter and the second quarter could be a lagging indicator of how well we're actually doing. So that's where it's also important to maybe look at previous years and do comparisons, and also look at the other 3 areas to kind of see where you are. It's hard to look at one thing and have a good snapshot of where you are. But each one of these things will tell you part of the story. You need all of the different pieces to tell you a full story. So let's go over those 3 areas that are going to primarily affect your net profit. So starting with managing your costs, you can look at the video we did. I believe it's called Managing Your Cost. It's basically your cost of goods sold. And so in that video, we break down this in more detail. Your cost of goods sold should be pretty accurate as a percentage of revenue. Now, again, you're gonna look back and you're gonna see how it compared to, April of last year. So that way you can compare this April with last April. And so you can make apples to apples comparison. Again, we've done a whole video talking about how to manage your cost of goods sold, but looking at it as a percentage of revenue should be a good indicator, because as your cost of goods sold go up, so should your revenue. They are very much correlated to one another because you only have those expenses once you're doing jobs. Be sure that you're removing any outliers. So especially when you're doing a smaller amount of jobs, if you're only doing 10, 15, 20 jobs, 1 or 2 outliers can throw off the numbers. Now, if you have a bunch of outliers, well, by the very definition, they're not outliers, so you should just change your approach. But if you are doing 10, 20, 50 jobs and you have a couple big ticket jobs that are throwing the percentages off, then just remove those from the equation so you can get a better understanding of where you are. All right, so let's talk about the second thing that we want to monitor, the marketing. Again, we have a whole video talking about marketing, but when you're evaluating it from a cost standpoint, it's important to look at it realistically, knowing what it represents. So if I generate a lot of phone calls, it's gonna take time for those phone calls to turn into estimates and those estimates to turn into jobs. So it's important that you understand that, $10,000 spent today, it may take 30, 60, 90 days for it to generate in revenue. Again, that can be a little dangerous because you could be spending a lot of money and you're not seeing the results of it. So that's why I always encourage people to start with the things that are most obvious. Don't come out of the gate trying this new, you've been brainstorming, you have these new ideas on marketing. Go with something that's a little bit more of a sure thing, get some momentum, and then once you have some extra cash, you can experiment with things that you're not sure about. You definitely want to take into account how much money you're spending on marketing and how much revenue that is producing. That is a very important metric to be able to look at. Hey, just a quick pause. Thanks for watching. I'm Adam Robinson. I run the Dyslexic Hustle. If you want to support us, please subscribe. Here are a couple different ways you can kind of look at your marketing and figure out if it's doing the right thing or if it's on the right track. So if you spend $5,000 in a given month for marketing, it should be generating more activity than the previous month that you didn't spend $5,000 on marketing. So if you spend $5,000 on marketing, you should be getting more phone calls, you should be getting more appointments, you should be getting more inquiries about your services or product. If you're not getting those things, then you know you're not on the right path. But just because you're getting phone calls or email submissions doesn't mean, or website submissions, it doesn't mean that you're getting the leads that you want. And so you got to follow it all the way through the funnel and see where it ends up on the other side. So you're getting calls, they're scheduling appointments, and they're saying yes. That's a good thing. If they're calling you and they're calling for a service that you're not offering, you're advertising in the wrong place or you have the wrong message. And so you have to look at every aspect of the funnel to make sure that you're going down the right vein and you're getting the right results. Again, just to reiterate some negative outcomes that might come from marketing that you want to readdress or reevaluate is how many leads are you getting? How many phone calls? When they call, are they good leads? Are they calling for the services that you're offering? And you have availability to service those people. So what I mean is if they're calling and they want to estimate tomorrow, but it takes you a week to get to it, well, you need to adjust either your processes so you can get to it quicker, or you need to reset expectations, or maybe you already have enough leads coming in and you don't need to be buying or paying for additional leads. So all of this information helps you make the best decision. And the last thing I'll say about marketing, the more you can track, the better. You may not have all the infrastructure in place to be able to properly analyze it the way that you will be able to, 5 years down the road. But all that data is really important. Have information on, where the lead came from, what happened to the lead, why you lost it, why you won it, what you're doing good, what you're doing bad. And as you go through and refine your process, you'll be able to make your process better and better because of the information that you have. All right, let's move to the third thing, overhead. So this is something that in some cases you don't have a lot of control over. There's some things that you just have to have. You have to have insurance, you have to have a cell phone. There's certain aspects, there's certain things that you need to just run your business and be able to communicate with your customers. Things that you don't need is a big fancy office. You are not a startup more than likely. You probably did not raise hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to start your service-based business. So keeping your expenses low is super helpful. Now, when I started my business in Colorado, I had an advantage. I've been doing this for years and years. And so I kind of knew what it needed to look like. I knew what I wanted it to look like. And so I was able to put certain things in place that I knew I was going to scale in the future. And so I didn't have everything perfectly laid out, but I had the infrastructure and I had an idea of what I wanted it to look like. Now, if you're starting a business, I would encourage you, try to draw up a blueprint of what you think it'll look like. Now, be careful when signing up with softwares and different things, because you don't want to sign long-term agreements with companies that you're not sure that you're going to be using in 12 months or 24 months. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is spend a little bit of time thinking about it. You don't get too bogged down, but ultimately you want to have probably some type of CRM, or you're going to, some way to keep up with your customers. So maybe you're just going to do it in a spreadsheet, and that's fine too. But quickly you're going to want to adopt some type of CRM. You're going to want a website, but you don't have to spend all of the money on the website. You can just spend some. You're going to want to have a Google profile. Again, you may pay someone to help you, coach you later on, but you can Google it, YouTube it, and get something set up before you have to pay a bunch of money to optimize it. So those are the types of things that I would focus on. You might want a t-shirt, but you don't need 100 t-shirts. That does look professional when you're walking up and you have a branded t-shirt and you're talking to a customer and you look clean cut and professional. You have a business card. It looks like it's thoughtful and you have, good contact information on there. Some simple things that some people may overlook. But for instance, one of the first things I did is I actually set up my Google profile and I made sure that I had an email that mirrored my company name. So it was easy to get a hold of us. It was also professional looking. It wasn't Gmail at 334. It actually was a company email that looked professional. It gives the customer a sense of confidence in who you are, in the company, and the services that you're offering. Final thoughts on overhead is every expense, especially early on, should be directly related to driving revenue. Don't worry about all the pretty things, the bells and whistles. You need just the basic things so you look professional and you can get out in person and do the things. Now, if you have a nest egg and you can spend all the extra money on that, then knock yourself out. Most people don't. In many cases, you'll be spending money on things that aren't even proven. So move slowly when it comes to overhead expenses and do things that will directly influence revenue, or alternatively affect your net profit. It shouldn't be and, should be or. Don't forget, your net profit is a scoreboard. You don't need $1 million to build a business. You just need the right systems and the right mindset.